All right, A tier. You're going to love this because I put the Chicago Bears in the A tier. And maybe you won't love it because maybe you think they're supposed to be S tier. They were close to a U tier team, though, because realistically, you have so much young guys in terms of Colston Loveland, Luther Burden, and Roma Dunze going to year 2 that I wouldn't call Dunze an unknown. I'd actually call him their best wide receiver at this point in time.
Yep.
And that's a lot saying how much they paid, DJ Moore. It's probably the one in this tier that by the end of the season, I might call them an S tier, but just right now, they're firmly in this tier for me. Baltimore Ravens in this tier with Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, and then that tight end duo of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. I put the Rams here. I know some people want the Rams to be in the S tier. I just don't know if I trust a 32-year-old Devontae Adams to be, Devontae Adams we all know and love. Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee, Terrence Ferguson at the tight end position. Dolphins I put in this tier as well. It was at one point, 2 years ago, probably the best receiving core in the NFL, in my opinion. But Tyreek's taken a step back. Jalen Waddle's been banged up. And you just have never added any size to this receiving core in terms of you have two tiny number 1 and number 2. That just limits your ability to do certain things on an NFL football field when that's really all you got. Obviously they added Darren Waller. Could be a big plus, but we'll see at the end of the day how much he really ends up impacting this roster. Detroit Lions I put here with Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tim Patrick, Isaac Tesla, and then Sam Laporta at tight end. That one you could convince me. Some of these teams you could convince me are S tier, but I put them here. The 49ers are another one that you could probably convince me. But Brandon Ayuk coming off an ACL, I'm hedging with that. Not sure where you're going to get from him. If you got the guy you saw before he signed that big contract, yeah, it's an S tier roster. But if not, Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, Jacob Cohen, as well as George Kittle at tight end. It's a very, very good receiving core. Just not quite in that elite tier at this point in time.
Yeah, B tier to me felt like Batman's with a couple Robin types. This is the A tier and the S tiers. It's about the unit. I mean, obviously you've got fantastic football players, but you've got the chess pieces where you want them. You've got who you want. And I'll start with the Chicago Bears. DJ Moore, guy who can do literally anything at the receiver position, but more often than not, you see him catching the football, fighting for yards. Roma Dunze was open dozens of times last year and was not able to receive the football, not because of his own doing, but because there was a comedy of errors.
Ball was going his way.
Comedy of errors happening in the backfield. Luther Burden III is a guy that, the Bears got away with stealing this guy, to be honest. A lot of people had him as a first-round receiver. I think they got him with the 39th pick, so end of the second round.
And with him, I'll just say, he doesn't even need – so the criticism I had, most people had, not a polished route runner. He doesn't need to be anything more than just spot routes, ball in his hand, break a tackle. That's all he needs to be effective in whatever role he's going to play in this Bears team because they have so much talent. It's just he doesn't have to come there and be their number 1.
So the Bears are either going to be in 11 or 12 personnel more often than not. And the conversation as training camp rolls along will be, do we want Loveland and Kmet on the field all the time together? Or do we want these three receivers on the field together? And whether it's Luther Burden or Colston Loveland, or if it's Cole Kmet, if it's obvious that Loveland's better than Kmet early, it'll be Cole Kmet. That's the conversation will revolve around. Are we going to have 2 tight ends or are we going to have 1 tight end on the field? But I love this group. I think Roma Dunze has himself a Pro Bowl year this year. And for the Ravens, obviously everything is made exponentially more dangerous because of the running back quarterback combination, but the offensive line is strong. And then you take a look at a guy like Zay Flowers, who, in my opinion, is disrespected league-wide. I think he's one of the top receivers in football, and I know you feel the same way. Rashad Bateman is a guy that can get it done for you. And then the most dangerous piece outside of the backfield are the 2 tight ends with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. We know what Mark Andrews can do. We've seen it for a decade now. Isaiah Likely, people are starting to figure out this guy is a real dynamic threat at the receiver position. For the Rams, Puka Nacua, he's one of the highest rated receivers in football year in, year out. Is he able to continue that streak of dominance? The physicality that is required of you to play in that Rams offense at that position is a lot, which is why I have my doubts about a guy like Davante Adams having sustained success with the Rams. I know that they're going to throw him the ball all the time. You got Tutu Atwell, and then obviously you've got Tyler Higbee there at the tight end position. And with Matt Stafford, he is the tide that raises all ships. Everybody will get a bite of the apple this year, but obviously Devontae and Puka are going to be getting the lion's share. For the Dolphins, another one of those, conversations revolving around the group. And the group got better with Darren Waller. And I like the way you put it. Their receivers are not physical mismatches in terms of size. So there's only a few flavors from which they can draw from to get these guys open, to get them clean looks at the football. And then Tua's got to be on time, and he's got to, be in rhythm, and he's got to be healthy. For the Lions, I mean, look, this is a unit that doesn't have, it feels like there's no all pros in their room. But it's just a bunch of guys who probably are pissed off that they didn't get all pro. And they're like, we're just all going to make Pro Bowl and we're going to win a ton of football games. That's what I like about Dan Campbell's group. And it just feels like that's the mentality in that room. Sam Laporta came on the scene hot. Obviously, people were expecting an even further uptick in his production. Didn't get that, but still damn good for Sam Laporta. Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tim Patrick, all these guys can be relied on. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the engine that makes that offense go. I know that the running game's huge, but got to have it situations. That's where they go. Not a lot of teams in the league have a guy where they can be like, no, we're going to ASB. Good luck guarding him. And for the 49ers, I mean, Brandon Ayuk. So the question mark is so big over Brandon Ayuk after coming back from his injury. What a tremendous route runner. A guy who can get open at will, seemingly. Will he still have that body control, explosiveness after the injury? Ricky Pearsall came on in a big way for the 49ers, and a great story there. And then George Kittle coming back. You love to see the elder statesman still in the room, in the building, and obviously going to be a big part of that offense, run and pass.
Yeah, this one, I think the Ravens might be the most controversial inclusion into this tier, just because the numbers that they put up aren't gaudy the same way, the rest of this tier. But you watch Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman and their ability to get open, and they get some benefit in that offense because they do longer developing routes, knowing that Lamar Jackson, just by nature of who he is going to give you more time. But on those guys get open at will. They are two of the best separators in the NFL. They're obviously, kind of in the tier or similar sort of issues that the Dolphins have, in that they're not physical. They are skinny wide receivers. They're not contested catch sort of wide receivers. But you got two tight ends here, contested catch guys. They work the middle of the football field. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. So two top tight ends, two of the best separators. They are firmly an A-tier receiving core to me. The one that I was like, gosh, I think it might still be an S-tier receiving core, even though they lost Deebo Samuel. I do think the 49ers. Because I think 1, 2, 3, Ricky Pearsall.
Juwan Jennings, I didn't mention him. He's great, too.
That's the one guy who I'm like, Juwan Jennings is a chain mover. If Juwan Jennings was in a lot of offenses around the league, a lot of other offenses around the league, I think a lot more people would know his name because he'd be getting 150 targets. Because that's just the type of wide receiver he is. He's a guy that, on slants, on whips, on these pure underneath intermediate
quick timing routes.
He's awesome. He's awesome at the catch point. Super physical. So, yeah, the 49ers still borderline that tier. But with the S tier, with the 4 teams I put there, what I was looking for is elite. I want game changers if I'm in the S tier. I don't need 4 guys who are good. I want 2 guys who dominate.
Who are great.
Give me 2 guys who dominate, because if you're scheming up a defense and you want to throw attention to a 1 guy who dominates, if you have a second guy who dominates as an offensive coordinator, that's all you need. That's really all you need. Now, it helps obviously to have depth then too that you can rely on. But as long as you have 2 guys that can win one-on-one pretty much every time they're given those matchups, your receiving core is sick. And so the S tier is the Philadelphia Eagles with obviously A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, John Dotson, and Dallas Goedert, tight end position. Dallas Cowboys, maybe a little bit controversial here, but I've had no bones about saying George Pickens is top 15 wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb top 5 receiver. You got that in your room, you're going to be damn tough to stop. And then you have a very good tight end position. Obviously, after that, the receivers are bad, and that's why I was worried without George Pickens what this receiving core would look like. But I love their tight end position. Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker. I think Ferguson, a top 10 tight end in the NFL. It's going to make a reliable backup for him. Then the Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson, dominant, right? A true like number one, have to account for him at every place sort of guy. And then even if their number two is probably the worst number two on this list, in Jordan Addison, they have TJ Hawkinson as well. So their number three is also very good. And then Jalen Naylor added Rondale Moore, who I'm excited to see how he fits in that offense this year as well. And last, but certainly not least, Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I don't even need to mention any of the guys. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. You have a dominant receiving core if you got those two guys.
The more I look at this S tier, the more I feel like there should be 5 teams in the S tier, and the Chicago Bears should be one of them. Okay. Hey, look, I mean,
they could get there. I'm not debating it. And if we're
in
just
all
like,
seriousness,
give me a fast forward button and put this to next off season, there's no doubt in my mind they will be next.
You're absolutely right. But the thing that I love about this S tier is that you truly do have the Batmans and the Robins on this list. It isn't just people dressing up as Batman and Robin. I mean, I look at Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and I just get nightmares as a DC. Jettis and Addison. I mean, Addison has been a proven big-time help in this offense. And you mentioned Hawkinson. Lamb Pickens, that's the big question mark. I mean, you said it. But both those guys are top wide receivers. And how do you defend that? The Eagles, it goes without saying, you couple the offensive line with the running back position and then this receiver room, and bringing in Dotson last year. We didn't even really get a ton out of Dotson, but that's probably the top room. It's probably the Eagles and the Bengals, in my opinion. But yeah, the Bears are right there with Moore, Odunze, Burden, and then you add the tight end Loveland. If he's a star, this is an S-tier unit. But I like your list, Mike.
Hey, if I had the button from Click and we just, fast forwarded, even maybe end of the season, I could put in there, because I've made no bones about it that I think this is the Chicago Bears team is the most diverse receiving core in the NFL. It has the best complementary skill sets of any team. And I think the addition of Olamide Zaccheaus is a little under the radar too, because DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, all, I don't want to say they're all not the same type of wide receiver, but they aren't burners. I think your fastest 40 of that bunch is Luther Burden at 4.41. So you don't have your true take the top off the defense guy. Now you do in Olamide Zaccheaus. And so with the Bears, you have just a ton of complementary skill sets to one another that, when you have, the Grand Master dialing it up, when you got why am I blanking on who's the guy who's the best chess player in the world? Well, you got Ben Johnson at the helm.
I think it's the Grand Master champion or something.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of the guy who currently is, whatever his name
Magnus.
is. Yes. Magnus Carlsen. There you go. Which sounds like a World's Strongest Man name every time I think of it.
Yeah, he's got the strongest chess piece.
But it's going to even outperform, I think, or should outperform even the talent in that room. So, yeah, you could, like I said, you convinced me a lot of those A tiers being S tier this season. But I think what I leaned on for this S tier was just like known elite receivers. There is not a number two. So you probably have 4 of the 5 best receivers in the NFL in this S tier.
Yep.
With AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase.
Batman.
4 of the 5 best. And then of the
Where's T. Higgins? Where's T. Higgins on the list of top receivers in the NFL?
So I think he's probably between like 15 and 20. Okay. And that's what I was saying. Of the number 2s, your worst guy, Jordan Addison, he's probably closer to your, 35 to 50 range. I think that's a fair, but that's still obviously as number 2. It's still like a high end number 2.
A lot of receivers out there.
But then they have a top, 5 to 10 tight end and TJ Hawkinson. So you have, T. Higgins probably 15 to 20 in the NFL. George Pickens probably 10 to 15. Devontae Smith probably, I'd put him 15 to 20 in the NFL. That's, that's how you get to just, we saw it with the Eagles, Vikings, and Bengals offenses last year. 3 of the best offenses in the NFL. It helps to have an answer on every single play.